Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Andrew, and we are the IB English guys. Today we'd like to present a video about how to go from topic to thesis. This is a very important skill for your paper 1, your paper 2, and your higher level essay, Mr. Giles.
Absolutely, or any essay where a literary essay where we're thinking about a text. We need to make sure that we've got an argument. That's what a thesis is. It's an argument, it's your glue. If your argument is strong, if you have good ideas, you'll have a really good paper.
Indeed. I think the best way to approach this topic, Mr. Giles, is to look at some samples, and we've selected some texts that we think everybody has worked with and everybody knows, so you can follow this line of thinking and elevate your thinking when you develop your thesis statements.
That's great. We want to think about a sentence stem when we're brainstorming topics. Now, first, we're going to brainstorm topics. We're not going to get to an argument yet. We're going to think about, this is a novel or play or film about, and this will help us come up with some good topics.
So this is a play about ... and just list the topics. I'm with you. Okay,
let's take some common texts that many students will know about. We're going to start with a novella of Mice and Men, a good old golden oldie. Yeah,
I love Mice and Men.
Yeah,
George and Lenny, the dog. Come on, that's a great book.
I know. So think about of Mice and Men. This is a novella about.
It's about friendship. It could be about isolation. It could be about cruelty. It could be about discrimination. It could be about broken dreams. There's so many topics in this novella, which is why so many schools choose to teach it, Mr. Giles.
I like that. So these are some great topics. Let's pivot now and think about a poem. One of our favorite poems that we like to teach is A Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. The speaker of this poem is inspiring her son to persevere, and she's thinking about her life. It hasn't been a crystal stair. It's been difficult, but she's been turning corners and she's been climbing up the stairs, and she's trying to inspire her son to do the same thing.
Thanks, David Hughes. I appreciate that recap of the poem. That was nice.
It's a powerful poem.
We could also think about a drama that everybody's looked at, such as Romeo and Juliet. And this could be a play about ancient feuds. Of course, we have the Capulets and the Montagues feuding. It could be about passionate love, sort of that emotional love that Romeo shows toward Juliet and vice versa. It could be about fate.
Yeah, it could also be about young people and the rebellious, the rebellion of young people. But it's also about reason and rationality. So these are some really great topics.
We know a lot of you are out there are working with the cartoons from Liza Donnelly. And of course, she talks a lot about childhood. I've seen that in many of her works. Also gender expectations. We see that through art in many of her cartoons, Mr. Giles.
Labels and stereotypes is another topic, or societal norms for women in particular.
Yeah, she often writes about sexuality and identity for females. These are prevalent topics that we find throughout her body of work.
Okay, lastly is a film that we just finished teaching, and we love this film. It won many Oscars, and it's by the Korean director Bong Joon-ho, Parasite. Thinking about Parasite, we could think about income inequality or the lack of social mobility.
Yeah, we could think about obstacles that prevent that social mobility. We could think about one's dignity and how that's impeded by being unable to rise upon the social ladder. There's lots of great topics we can think about.
Yeah, that's great. So again, now that we brainstorm topics, we have to ask ourselves, what is the author arguing about this topic? And this will help us arrive at a good thesis. It's almost like the author is whispering to us.
I like that,
right?
Yeah. So I often ask my students, what would the author say? If you ask the argument, what is this text about? What is the argument? What would the author say? That should be your argument. Let's go back to the novella of Mice and Men, Mr. Giles. Which topic do you want to choose?
Let's choose friendship. Again, friendship, we think about Lenny and George. We like to think about the friendship, but we have to say something about that. So one potential argument is that in Of Mice and Men, John Steinbeck argues that friendship proves vital in overcoming hardship and persevering through hard times.
That's so true. Of course, that's a novella rooted in the Great Depression, and we see how that friendship through George and Lenny does help them maintain a dream. Even though the dream doesn't come true, that friendship really helps them persevere and carry on.
Yeah, and it's such contrast to all the cruelty in the novel too, right? So I think that, again, it's a strong statement about how human beings treat each other.
Lastly, Giles, I just noticed that you used the word that in this sentence. We encourage our students to use that little connector that, and we find that when students use that word, they say something more insightful, more profound, more interesting, and that leads to stronger writing.
Yeah, and notice we got the author that's arguing that.
Exactly. It's not about Andrew or Dave. It's about what is the author arguing about that text.
Yeah. Here's one for Mother to Son, the poem that we talked about. In Mother to Son, Langston Hughes conveys that perseverance and resilience are necessary in order to overcome adversity.
That's right. In that poem, we have a speaker who's sort of encouraging her child that, hey, this is a tough ride. As an African-American young male, this is something that you need to you have to persevere if you want to become something in this society.
Yeah, and there's your argument. Romeo and Juliet, your favorite. Let's hear it.
Yeah, my favorite. Maybe you want to take the topic of passionate love, and a thesis statement could be as follows. In Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare argues that passionate love can interfere with reason and lead to dangerous consequences.
I like that.
I like
You know,
that.
thinking about reason and rationality and how passionate love can derail that, that's again what Shakespeare definitely is talking
Yeah,
about.
you're going to get some good body paragraphs in that writing.
I agree. Parasite, we love that film. So again, thinking about Parasite, we could argue that Bong Joon-ho, through Parasite, Bong Joon-ho demonstrates that social mobility is a myth and that economic obstacles for advancement can be insurmountable.
That is a powerful argument because ultimately, despite a lot of us believing that we can climb the social ladder, Bong Joon-ho suggests otherwise, and that is his argument, Mr. Giles. Let's move on to Liza Donnelly and think about expectations and labels.
Yeah, and this is an argument for this particular cartoon that we have shown here. So we want to think about, in this cartoon, Liza Donnelly argues that unfair and discriminatory labels and expectations for women shapes their perception of self.
Well, yeah, that is so important, Mr. Giles. A lot of her work does explore, how society puts pressure, how societal stereotyping does affect self-perception. That's a lot of her work.
Yeah, I agree. So again, now we want to think about, okay, when we're working with a thesis, it is difficult work. It's some heavy lifting. We need to kind of work on some questions to ask ourselves to make our thesis statements
Yeah,
better.
and I think it's important before you go to your teacher or your tutor or your friend for support, you have to run some questions through your mind and think about, is there something I can do to elevate my thinking? The first question you might want to ask yourself is, can this idea be refined? What do we mean by that, Mr. Giles?
Can I tweak the argument? Can I sharpen it? Can I think about the thesis in a way to just refine it and polish it to make it better, make it stronger?
That's a good time to think about, are you being precise with your word choice and are you being concise with language? Be precise, be concise.
We might want to also think about, is there another side to this argument? Can we look at this argument, my thesis, can we look at it in another way? And just think about the other side of the argument.
That's right. Oftentimes that'll expand your idea and perhaps even change or tweak the way your original line of thinking was going. You might want to think about, are there other ways of wording this argument, Mr. Giles? Why is that so important?
We want to just, again, be strong and be exact with our vocabulary. Yeah, I mean, we are, when we were looking at the Liza Donnelly one, self-perception is a nice turn of phrase. That didn't come out right away. We thought about identity, but we're like, it's a little bit, let's make it stronger. So again, just changing words and working with them can sometimes lead to a better
And you'll
argument.
find that many of those words that you discard may reappear in topic sentences when you're trying to link the topic sentence to the thesis later, but that's a topic for another video.
The last thing we want to think about is, do I have enough support for this? Is there enough? Is this central to the text? Can I really argue this and have multiple body paragraphs and supporting ideas?
Yeah,
and
think about that. I think it's important because sometimes students want to choose something that's a bit obscure, something that's a bit off to the side. We believe that you're better off staying with the author's central argument rather than trying to come up with something insightful that may not be super meaningful to the text itself.
Yeah, that's right. And then we can start outlining and then we can write a great paper. Yeah. So in closing, think about your argument, make it strong, make it crisp, and use topics to arrive at a thesis.
Folks, try this out on your paper 1, your paper 2, your HLE, or as Mr. Giles says, any type of academic writing for any class. This is how you solidify strong academic writing. We'll see you on the channel next time and take care.
Thanks, guys.